Park Township Airport first opened in 1937. The airport had a 3,000-foot asphalt runway and a grass runway that was about 700 feet shorter. During World War II, the airport became a training center for many pilots through Hope College's pilot training program. After the war, the airport became open to hundreds of pilots who stored their planes there and used it as a takeoff. In 2019, however, the fate of the airport was decided by a vote from Park Township residents by the means of a mileage approval. If the mileage was approved, the airport could continue to exist and function, but if the mileage was not approved, the asphalt runway would be destroyed and the airport would shut down.
First up at 7 o'clock, voters in Ottawa County's Park Township will head to the polls to decide if they want to invest in the township's 83-year-old airport.
Voters in Park Township will decide on a millage to fund improvements at the community's airport.
If it fails, runway going to be removed. And for some people, that's okay.
When the results were finally tallied, the Park Township community decided to reject the mileage by a vote of about 57% to 43%. According to Doug Formsma, former airport manager, the airport was self-sustainable using revenue from hangar rent and fuel sales. None of them received any money for their labor at the airport. All workers were volunteers. The runways were in good condition, but one of the taxiways and some of the hangars needed repairs. The township did not want to make capital improvements and requested a mileage to be approved by township residents. 1/10 of a million was the minimum required by law, which was double what would be necessary for repairs. However, the township board asked for $180,000. It is my belief that $100,000 might have been approved, and those on the township board opposed to the airport knew that too, and asked for $180,000, knowing citizens would oppose. In a board meeting, members of the board decided if a mileage was not approved, the airport would be closed.
So it started out when I bought an airplane about 10 years ago and needed a place to put it. And Park Township was the only local airport that had hangars available. Then I became involved in the airport board. They asked me to help out since we're all volunteer-based at that airport. And then after a few years, the president of the airport board, which was called Ottawa Aviation, retired, and they elected me as president of the Ottawa Aviation. And we were the managers of the airport for the township for the past 30 years or so. A lot of people were misled about the cost of the airport. For the past over 30 years, the airport has been fully funded by volunteers, and it hasn't cost the taxpayers a dime. Unlike a lot of the other airports in the area, Park Township would have free access to pilots, whereas if you go to Tulip City Airport, West Michigan Regional, on the south side of town, it's all fenced in. So it's really hard to go up and talk to pilots if you're interested in aviation. It created a lot of pilots. I know of at least a dozen of my friends that all became pilots and professional pilots right out of high school because they had access to this airport and they could go up and talk to people, and they started learning about aviation.
I first became involved with this airport about 5 years ago. One of my friends and scouts did his Eagle project, Jeffrey Grahn. He painted the cones for the grass runway, which they're no longer here, of course, but that got me involved here. I got to meet lots of the pilots and really snowballed from there. So this is my Eagle project. I put in these circle pavers and this retaining wall around the jet we have here, and then the township later did come in and put the concrete on the fence stuff. But that's mine. All the flowers and everything we put in later. After all we've put into this airport, it's really going to be sad to see it go. I am glad that I got to land and take off from it myself, at least twice before it closed.
losing this airport, because general aviation has a problem of nobody's building new airports anymore. Only airports are disappearing, and that creates a big problem in general aviation. I hope it can remain public property, but in reality, I think someone has a different agenda for the property. What I foresee happening is the township will come up with a plan to develop it into maybe a park or something, but along with that is going to come a tax, and they're going to put that up to the taxpayers for a vote, just like they did repaving the runway. And whatever they develop there, I think is going to cost more than just repaving the runway.
With a Park Township employee to learn about what they're planning for the airport space. Although he was not comfortable with being recorded, he did tell me about some of the plans for the current property. Although plans are still being made and are still being decided, he told me that the township is currently constructing a parking lot at the end of the original grass runway, and it will be used as an entrance and gateway to the new Cooper Van Wieren trail system. Bike trails are being installed off of 152nd and Ottawa Beach Road, leading to the new trail system and parking lot. The original millings from the runway are being used as a base for the parking lot and new bike trails. The township is currently working with local biking groups to create mountain biking trails for use in the Cooper Van Wieren Preserve. Walking paths and even a section that will accommodate equestrian uses are in planning and design stages. The Civil Air Patrol will be staying at the historical airport hangar. The remote control airplane clubs that have historically used the site are also continuing on the property, as well as the powered parachutes. Helicopters are also permitted to use the land. The township is currently looking at where that will occur on the site and how best to design for helicopter usage. The township is committed to maintaining the site as an open space and for recreational uses. They will continue to implement the plans already in place and work to improve and refine the vision for property with the next Board of Trustees. Moving forward, the board and staff will be working on making the site accessible and valuable to all residents in Park Township.
The story of the demise of the airport has all the makings of a cheap paperback novel. Small-minded and deceitful politicians, big money special interest, revenge, bait and switch, duplicity and misdirection, and fooling just enough people to make something look legitimate. If you think about what is going on in national politics right now, those techniques and methods were honed to perfection in small community boards of trustees, just like Park Township. While this whole airport situation was not Watergate by any means, it did prove that a very few small-town bureaucrats and special interests can effectively take something away from the township residents and make it look like that was the desired result.